10. Aaron O'Connor. In 2016, 25-year-old Aaron O'Connor was talking on the phone with her father when she suddenly said her head was hurting and she quickly became incoherent. She was sitting in her car outside her Chicago apartment when it happened and was unaware of what was causing the pain. The young woman had been hit by a stray bullet. Her roommate found her unconscious inside the vehicle and dialed 911, but it was too late to save Aaron's life. The news of Aaron's death devastated her father, who cautioned her against moving to Chicago amid a huge spike in gun violence. He called on Chicago's leaders to do more to take action against what he described as senseless and reckless gun violence in the city. More than 3 years later, police were still working to identify and catch Aaron's killer, who they say was standing behind Aaron's car and pointing a gun at someone else when she got shot. Investigators believe the shooter was aiming at a rival gang member and said they were just waiting for the right witness to come forward, but the case remains unsolved to this day. 9. Saron James. Cleveland James initially thought he heard fireworks while driving in Harris County, Texas in 2019. But he looked over and saw his 62-year-old wife, Saron, had been shot while riding in the passenger seat during their drive home from a doctor's appointment. The bullet had pierced the window and struck her in the head. The distraught husband tried desperately to stop the bleeding while he waited for paramedics to arrive, but sadly Saron died from her injuries. An investigation found that the shooting happened during a road rage incident between two other parties, which had absolutely nothing to do with the couple. Acting on numerous tips and other evidence, police issued an arrest warrant for 19-year-old Tacony Blackledge, who was captured a month later in Mississippi. He was charged with Saron's murder and held on $500,000 bail. 8. Matthew Wilson. During a visit to see his long-distance girlfriend Catherine Shepard in Atlanta earlier this year, 31-year-old British astrophysicist Matthew Wilson was awakened by the sound of more than 30 gunshots coming from the direction of a nearby apartment complex. One of the bullets pierced the apartment's wall and struck Wilson in the head. Shepard's roommate, Aman Carr, heard Shepard scream and went into her room. When he saw what had happened, he dialed 911. In the meantime, Shepard held Wilson for 20 minutes with a towel on his head while the couple waited for help to arrive. During that time, they could still hear guns being fired. She told the Daily Mail that she knew something was wrong when Wilson's breathing became labored and she noticed that he was slumped over. In her own words, she said that it looked like he was looking at her, but he was unable to talk. Whenever his eyes began to close, she shook him and talked to him to try keeping him awake. But he fell unconscious during the 20-minute wait for the ambulance, and by the time paramedics arrived, Wilson was unresponsive. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. The University of Exeter PhD student was planning to spend 3 months in the US with Shepard after spending a year apart, when his life was cut short less than 2 days into his visit. Shepard told WSB-TV that she picked up Wilson at the airport, went to his favorite restaurant, and the next day, he's gone. Police determined that the shooting resulted from a nearby random act of violence involving the reckless discharge of firearms and have yet to arrest a suspect in the disturbing case. They don't believe that the gunfire was gang-related because it happened in an area that sees little gun violence and is generally considered safe. In early February, Georgia police announced that they're offering a $15,000 reward for information leading to the identification and arrest of the shooter. They've encouraged anyone with information to contact them and are accepting anonymous tips in hopes of catching the person responsible for cutting the scientist's life short. 7. Deadly police raid. A massive shootout recently erupted between police and civilians in a Rio de Janeiro favela or shantytown during a police raid aimed at capturing leaders of a drug trafficking organization. At least 21 people died and 7 others were wounded during the chaos, including innocent bystanders who were struck by stray gunfire. Residents reported hearing heavy gunfire starting at around 4 o'clock in the morning, then again in the afternoon. Police spokesperson Colonel Ivan Blatz described the encounter as a very intense confrontation. But to the people who lived in the neighborhood, it amounted to the senseless killing of their loved ones, leading to protests and demands for justice. This is just the latest in a disturbing trend of deadly police operations throughout Brazil. Last year, 28 people were killed during a raid in the Jacarezinho neighborhood. In the aftermath, witnesses accused police of performing summary executions. In other words, playing judge and jury on the spot and killing a suspected criminal. Weeks later, during another police raid, a pregnant woman was fatally shot by a stray bullet. This seems to keep happening, despite Brazil's Supreme Court having recently established a set of guidelines for raiding favelas in hopes of reducing human rights violations and killings by police. According to the protocols, law enforcement should only resort to using lethal weapons when doing so is necessary to protect lives and all other means of control have been exhausted. But based on the number of people getting shot, including those who are hit by stray bullets, many suspect that the police are not exactly using restraint when it comes to pulling the trigger. 6. Augustine Greenwood. 80-year-old Augustine Greenwood was leaving her grandson's high school graduation in New Orleans recently when she was shot and killed by a stray bullet. She was about to go to dinner with her family to celebrate when two women nearby began arguing and one of them pulled out a gun and started shooting. As a mother of 6, grandmother of 15, and a great-grandmother of 12, the matriarch shunned gun violence and raised her family to pursue an education beyond high school. So, it was devastatingly ironic when this beloved pillar of the community was killed in a shooting moments after watching her grandson receive his diploma. Augustine was one of 3 people who were shot in the ordeal. The other 2 victims were struck in the leg and the shoulder and are expected to survive. No arrests have been made, but investigators are working diligently to bring Augustine's killer to justice. New Orleans Police Department Deputy Chief Christopher Goodley told local station WWL-TV that guns were found at the scene and that several people have been brought in for questioning over the senseless act of violence. He also commented on how there were police and security guards at the event and that the shooting did not have to happen. 5. A young hero. During a family dinner at Chili's restaurant in Rocky Mount, Tennessee recently, a young woman named Mariah Poland and her family were shaken by a loud noise. She would later describe it to local station WITN as sounding like a plate being thrown across the restaurant and having it shatter on the floor. Poland then saw a woman standing with a gun in her hand aimed at a female victim on the floor who died from her injuries. An employee was struck in the leg by a stray bullet during the ordeal, and Poland watched as he went into the kitchen. As soon as the shooter was gone, she rushed back there and used towels and the young man's belt to get the bleeding under control. He was taken to the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. Poland is being praised for her bravery, which she said stems from her desire to be a nurse. She told WITN that she dreams of helping to take care of people who can't help themselves. Throughout high school, she'd taken a nursing fundamentals class, but she'd never expected for her skills to be put to the test in the middle of a family meal. Police have charged the suspect, Nitika Battle, with numerous crimes, including first-degree murder and attempted murder. 4. Madison Gilroy. In late 2020, 22-year-old Madison Gilroy was walking down the street in Pittsburgh when a shootout erupted at a nearby gentleman's club. Gerald Ingram, who'd recently been banned from the establishment, was arguing with the security guard. As he drove away, he fired multiple shots, striking Gilroy in the back and shooting 2 security guards. The young woman, who'd been adopted out of foster care and planned to become a doctor, was killed by the bullet. Police arrested 32-year-old Gerald Ingram for criminal homicide, attempted criminal homicide, aggravated assault, and numerous weapons charges. Ingram pleaded guilty to third-degree murder and will serve 10 to 25 years in prison. At his sentencing, he apologized to the Gilroy family, but admitted that if the shoe was on the other foot, he probably wouldn't forgive himself. And while it was clear that Ingram had no malicious intent toward his victim, he owes a debt to society for his careless actions that cost an innocent bystander their life. 3. Larry Purnell. 64-year-old landscaper Larry Purnell was mowing a backyard in Chicago for a Mother's Day celebration when he heard gunshots from out in the street. He rushed toward the noise to see if anyone needed help and was struck in the chest by a stray bullet. 2 other victims were also shot. 26-year-old Brandon Slater was fatally shot, and a 27-year-old man was shot in the leg. Larry died from his injuries just 2 weeks before his 65th birthday, leaving his wife Sharon to grieve just 5 years after losing one of their children to gun violence. The loss is especially disheartening, considering her husband's desire to guide kids away from violence and encourage them to pursue respectable goals. Speaking with the Chicago Sun-Times, Sharon highlighted the need for something to be done about the persistent problem of gun violence, which she says always seems to harm innocent people who are out doing right in their communities. Police have very little to go on as they appeal to the public for any information that will help them identify Larry's killer. 2. Erin Walsh. Erin Walsh was spending time with her husband, Richard Lappian, and her young son on the front porch of their Harrisburg, Pennsylvania home last year when two men began shooting off their guns nearby. She rushed to protect her little boy from the gunfire, but they were both struck by stray bullets while she ushered him inside. The 28-year-old mother was killed by a gunshot wound to the head. Describing Erin as a hero, Lappian told ABC 27 that he credited his wife with saving their son's life, stating that if she hadn't been in the way of the bullet, he would have been. The boy was shot twice in the leg, but thankfully survived. Sadly, he still walks with a limp, according to court records. Walsh left behind 4 sons, who Lappian said he's struggling to care for while mourning her death. He's devastated that the opportunity to raise their family and grow old together has been taken from him. 5 months later, police charged 30-year-old Ramir Haynes in connection with Erin's death. They identified him with the help of surveillance footage connecting him with the car that was involved. 21-year-old Dermond Derek M. Scott was recently charged in Erin's death as well, and 38-year-old Corey A. Hill faces an aggravated assault charge for firing at the suspect's car. 1. Angelina Palmer. Mother of 9, Angelina Palmer was outside a convenience store in Spanaway, Washington on her 39th birthday recently when she became a victim of an argument between 2 men nearby that erupted in gunfire. They sped off in their vehicles while she was rushed to the hospital, where she later died. Pierce County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Moss made it clear that Angelina was absolutely not involved with the shooting whatsoever, and that she was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time. He told local station Kiro 7 that people need to stand up and stop being so cowardly, and that pulling a gun out is not the way to resolve an argument. Moss reminded the public that a person is responsible for every bullet that comes out their gun. Nothing will bring Angelina back, but her family wants justice and has urged the killer to turn themselves in. The 9 kids she leaves behind range in age from 1 to 23 years old. Her brother said that she raised most of them on her own. No arrests have been made, and the investigation is ongoing. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have a stray bullet fly through your window and straight into your brand new TV, or cut your finger washing a knife and need stitches? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.